Welcome guys. Welcome to my live Sunday, the 7th of June. I have to say this is the first time in a number of weeks now I've actually decided to wear a jumper because I was actually starting to feel quite cool, which doesn't bode well, does it? But then saying that, we've obviously enjoyed some beautiful weather over the last couple of weeks, and the way I see it is, while it's a bit cooler, it means that we'll appreciate it when the warmth comes back. So yes, that's my mind as usual. Always look on the bright side. The glass is half full. Not half empty, or more than full, I would sort of say. So yeah, that's my way of looking at stuff. So yeah, this week I would like to look at acceptance in relation to courage, and I'm talking about acceptance of ourselves, which might seem a little bit, really, what's that got to do with courage? Well, I would say, in terms of acceptance of ourselves, I actually think it takes genuinely a lot of real courage to really accept all aspects of ourselves. I always call it the good, the bad and the ugly, all of it, for all of its worth. I think it's often easier, which I suppose, you think, well, yeah, of course it would be, to accept things about ourselves that we perhaps like, or that we present to the world, or that we want others to think about us or know about us. And yeah, I mean, that's great. It's a lovely feeling when we get, nice positive feedback back. But I also think there are many other aspects to us, to our inner selves, to our thought processes, that aren't always, wonderfully brilliant all of the time. And I think it's important that we accept those parts of ourselves as well as all the other great stuff, and that we don't try and deny that or squash that, or put on some sort of image that isn't really true to what we are. It reminded me of the Marianne Williamson quote that I've actually read and quoted before, but I'm going to read it once more because I just think it's really pertinent. And she says, "It takes courage to endure the sharp pains of self-discovery, rather than to choose to take the dull pain of unconsciousness that would last the rest of our lives." And that always sort of makes me think, to ensure sharp pains of self-discovery, it takes more courage in some ways than to choose to take the dull pains of unconsciousness, to allow other things to just enable us to almost numb ourselves in a way, numb the pain. Now, this week, a couple of things I want to share relating to courage. I had some major issues with my computer, with my Mac, and it left me feeling frustrated and annoyed and all the rest of it on so many levels. And I had a call as well in the week. I had a Zoom call to go over some of the things that I'm doing with a couple of the coaches around this coaching event that we're doing online next week. It's next week at the moment then. Around creating courageous coaching conversations. Now, the reality is, by the time I came onto the call that we were having together to share our ideas and so forth, I knew I was tired. I felt emotional. Didn't really feel, if I'm honest with you, like I was in the right place to really do it or to share and to do my sort of presentation. So I felt quite jaded when I came onto the call. Now, something I would say is, previously, I think I would have tried to push through the feelings, I'd have pushed them down, I'd have put on what I call, a strong image. I'd have perhaps made out things were okay. And the reality would be that on the surface for all to see would probably be, just the same as, nobody would sort of know any different. But the truth of that, I think, is that often when we do that, we don't always realise the energy it takes from us to draw upon so much of all this other stuff to make out we're okay, that at some point that's got to go somewhere and it's got to have some sort of impact. And I'll mention that a little bit more later. So what I did do was I actually didn't turn around and sort of start to push it down and try and ignore it and make out, it was okay. I actually shared on the call that I was frustrated and annoyed. I think they could see that something was up. I named it. I allowed myself to feel the emotion and the impact of that. I remember sort of feeling a little bit upset at the time as well. I could feel like, tears coming into my eyes. And then I sort of breathed through it, I was like, okay, so what I'm feeling, I'm showing this, I've shared it, breathe through, started to share some of my thoughts and my presentation that I was looking to do. And actually what happened was that it was okay, there was nothing untoward that happened. I felt accepted. No one else made me feel bad about how I felt. In fact, if anything, they actually didn't say anything really at that point. So they just let me express what I said and what I felt. I didn't feel embarrassed afterwards, or that maybe, I'd let myself down, or making myself, feel bad for being wrong for how I'd sort of showed my thoughts and my feelings. And in some respects, I probably felt more connected, with those people. And also, I hadn't really taken this other energy, from other aspects of me internally to try and present this false perception or image of what I was really feeling. Now, in some aspects, it may have been and probably would have been easier to have shut down what I felt and to have presented this image of, actually, I'm okay. And that, I get that, I've done that previously. But in the long term, I think it becomes more painful and also what I call a bit lonely. And I think this is where often when you feel these things, you will, what I call, numb it in other ways. So I made a note here of putting, you could be, for example, overeating or overworking. You could be punishing yourself by doing too much exercise. I think what happens is, if you don't connect and be honest and real and truthful about how you're feeling, then I think yourself and your body find other ways to take that energy somewhere else. But I think often in an unhealthy way, and I think that's often where people will take things to excess, and I was just giving obviously some examples there. I think, I don't just think, I know, to be honest, it took more courage, I think, to be honest about how I felt for me at the time. But I genuinely think that of late, I'm experiencing, the rewards of being able to do that. I think they're far greater. My sense of feeling good about myself, feeling that I'm living by my values, feeling that I'm being more in alignment with what's true to me, sharing my honesty, connecting in a real significant way with people. I've always felt that connection as a value, as I've said previously, has always been massive to me, and it still continues to be. But it's really interesting on so many levels. I feel like I'm connecting so much more on such a deep level. I want to give you another example of this that happened this week. So there was a photo of myself on my presentation, like my PowerPoint that I'm just talking about, that I was sort of sharing with others. And my other half sort of saw this picture, and I can't remember the exact comment now, but it was very throwaway, very flippant, and he made some comments along the lines of, was that looking, was you looking more like your younger self before you met me? And it was probably nothing, it meant to be nothing. He probably thought it was being sort of funny, a bit of a joke. Now, my point I want to make here is this is nothing to do with my other half and what he said and what that meant. This is nothing to do with that at all. My point for me, and what I really noticed, was it niggled me, it bugged me, it sort of felt like it got under my skin. And at the time I knew I felt a bit annoyed, and I didn't really say too much about, the degree to which I felt it annoyed me. And the more I reflected on it, the more I accepted, actually, it didn't matter what he had meant by it anyway. Do you know what I mean? That was irrespective, because the piece that I'm trying to get to here is, it niggled and bothered me to such an extent. It was more to do with me. It was something about me that I needed to look at. And so I became aware that it really had connected with, an insecurity that, I'm probably already aware of, on some level. So I'm getting a little bit older, and I suppose like many men and women, but certainly I think women have particular sort of perceptions of what they feel, how they, what they feel about themselves, how they look, and all the other cultural stuff that comes along with how you're supposed to look. So I think that connected with something, that I was sort of a little bit insecure about, maybe noticing of late, or, you see previous photos or pictures and I'm like, oh, yeah, I can see on some level, I'm aging a bit, I'm looking a little bit older. I've always been very used to actually having a lot of compliments from the perspective of people saying in my life, oh man, either you look good for your age, or you look younger than what you are. But yeah, it does feed into that sort of insecurity of you seeing yourself and going, oh okay, now I'm aging a bit, I'm looking a little bit older. I also knew I'd not done the physical exercises that I'd said to myself on my to-do list at the beginning of the lockdown that I was going to do. I've done many things actually. I'm going to give myself some credit here, but one of the things I haven't done is a lot of physical activity that was on my list. So what I really knew and became very conscious and very aware of, and I really reflected on, was I was only niggled by the comments because it's something I'm already annoyed with in myself. This is the point I'm making. I know deep down there are certain things I'm not really happy with about the way I sort of look, purely from a perspective of, you get a sense of, your age, you see yourself, you see your physical body, you get to a point where, you can see you put on a few pounds, and yeah, and it's just, it's sort of challenging to try and keep feeling, looking okay, doing what you need to do to keep yourself fairly physically well enough, but knowing that the older you get, basically, I think generally the more energy it takes to do that. Now, I know and knew that it would be easy for me to continue, or to have continued to have this internal dialogue in my head, about, oh, why I'm so annoyed with my other half, start to question, what does he really think of me and the way I look, and so forth. But actually, what I was really aware of is that will only take me to an unhealthy place. And when I say unhealthy place, what tends to happen, and this happens to a lot of people when you go there with those thoughts, is I will probably then start to hold resentment on some level to him, even if he might not know it. Those things begin to seep in other ways. So, for example, it might be absolutely nothing to do with that at all, something completely separate. And I could be really short, in my words or my conversation. And, it's one of those moments where everyone's had it, where when you know somebody really well and you come out with something and they just sort of react or respond, and you look and you go, whoa, what was that about? There's a real sense of, I said this one tiny thing, you know, and where you've just taken it to is completely blown it all out of proportion. And in essence, what has happened generally when that does happen is it's never about that piece, that one thing that was really said. You know, often it's because there were other resentments or angst or things that, you know, somebody had been sort of storing up in the mind and ruminating about and not really, you know, worked on and let go of. Now, for me, it takes more courage to accept, you know, I'm annoyed with myself. You know, I mean, that's the real source. I could easily, as I said, go, oh, you know, my head all starts to get annoyed about something or even, you know, say to him, oh, what do you mean? What do you mean by that? Blah, 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 and have this, you know, conversation. But I knew that that wasn't what it was about. That wasn't the issue. So I've just wrote here, we can only be bothered by something someone has said or done because we need to accept or work on it in ourselves. When we are accepting of aspects of ourselves, then we can be more accepting of that in others. And in fact, in the week, I referred to this in one of my Facebook posts, to the idea of what I call the shadow self and projection. And I put that if I've not worked and accepted something about myself, then I'm going to project that onto another person. Could be consciously or unconsciously. So if I work on my own shadow, then other people's behaviour won't trigger me so easily, and I will, or am more likely to communicate more clearly. And as Jung is often quoted as saying, everything that irritates us about others can lead to an understanding of ourselves. And that's the piece. And I really get that, and I really accept that and understand and know that. And I just think it takes energy and courage to keep going there and going, do you know what? When I have a reaction or response to something that makes me go, ugh, you know, actually the place to really look at is, what's that telling me about what I need to look at and work on in myself first and foremost, before I, you know, take that anywhere else. That's really, really key. And by doing that, I then can have more understanding and compassion and empathy for others as well. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense, or, you know, a little bit of inspiration or food for thought. What I'm now going to do, guys, is I've got a poem I'd like to share and read with you. It's called Acceptance. So, acceptance. Acceptance of what? Of self, of other. Acceptance of denial, to be in denial. Can you accept denial? Is to accept denial to no longer be in denial? Denial of your infallibility, your secrets, your fantasies or desires. To say yes to it, to accept, that means no to something else. Something more than, less than, somewhere in between. Is in between enough? Enough for who and what? To accept what exactly? Who you are, who you've become, who you are becoming. Who are you becoming? To become more accepting of self, and in doing so, acceptance of others. I see myself in you. I see you in myself. I see myself in all its glory and mess. Glory and mess of being human. Accepting I am human. I am human. Accepting what it means to be human. To be imperfectly human. To accept I am imperfectly human. And that's called acceptance. and I'm smiling because the way I sort of slightly, yeah, mess my little words up towards the end. The whole thing about being imperfectly human, I was laughing because I thought the irony of that, you know, I've just just shown it in action, haven't I? So there you go. Perfect. So, as always with my lives, for those of you, I'm sure many of you already know, those of you who don't, I'm actually now going to share a song that I've chosen. Just give me a little minute just to get it up on the screen. And for any of you who possibly join us now, or you haven't followed us all the way through, then please know that you're more than welcome to obviously watch at any other point where you've got a little bit of time. So, you ready? You're wondering which one I'm going to sing today, or attempt to. I can see clearly now, the rain has gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. Oh yes, can make it now, the pain is gone. All of the bad feelings have disappeared. Here is that rainbow I've been praying for. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. Look all around, there's nothing but blue skies. Look straight ahead, there's nothing but blue skies. I can see clearly now, the rain has gone. Almost. I can see all the obstacles in my way. Here's the rainbow I've been praying for. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. It's gonna be a 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 bright, bright, sunshiny day. Thank you guys. Thank you for joining me. I hope that it's given you food for thought, some reflection, some inspiration, some thoughts moving forward for the rest of the day or into your week. And yeah, just notice the niggles, notice what you respond to. Notice when you get that, what I call that little bit angst, that bit triggered, and instead of going over there, just begin to ask yourself, okay, what is this telling me about myself and what I need to work on? And I think if that's one piece that you do, then I think you're in for a good learning, some good reflection. So thank you as always. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for the time that you take. As always, as I said, it's a real privilege. And if you watch this at any other point, then yeah, also really appreciated. And please feel free to send me any comments, to respond. You know, you can always contact me at mandy@nolimitscoach.com, and I'm always really happy to reply to any thoughts you have. Thanks guys, have the rest of a good day and a good week. Take care and see you soon. Bye.